The deadbolt slammed, and Kyle said, "Was your home?" He got $62 at noon. By night, I was on the porch. Then he froze our accounts and filed separation papers before I found a hotel. He called it security. I called it erasing me. No keys, no money, no proof I built anything. I slept in my car, shaking. But I had one thing he didn't: our ledgers, my receipts, and the brass archive key. I knew where the bodies were buried, on paper. 24 hours later, he was begging on my doorstep. I didn't cry. I opened the door with a plan. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Veronica Connors, and I'm 36 years old. While my husband Kyle sleeps in our hillside mansion, I still wake at midnight to balance ledgers and sort through foundation archives. Kyle, my partner of 8 years, used to value my practical nature, but lately his smirks cut deeper than praise. "Such a diligent little bookkeeper," he'll say, as if counting other people's money was beneath him. His uncle, the foundation's founder who treated me like a daughter, understood the power of careful stewardship. I've memorized every transaction, every archive box, and every whispered confession that others missed while chasing spotlight moments. My fingers trace the brass key to the foundation's private records, warm against my palm. Even Kyle doesn't know what secrets those dusty files hold. But let me start from the beginning. You know those moments when your whole life shifts, but the room stays stubbornly normal? That's what it felt like sitting in the attorney's office that Tuesday morning. The leather chair creaked under me as I shifted, trying to focus on the mundane details: the way sunlight caught dust motes, the tick of the wall clock, the faint coffee smell from someone's paper cup. Kyle sat next to me, drumming his fingers on the armrest. He'd insisted on wearing his sharpest suit, the one that cost more than our first month's rent years ago. I'd chosen simple black, appropriate for mourning. The uncle had always appreciated understated elegance. Now, regarding the disposition of the primary estate, the attorney's voice droned on, but I was remembering last Sunday's archive session, sorting through the uncle's old photographs. He'd caught me categorizing them long after everyone else had left. "Stewardship," he'd said, leaning on his cane, "is who shows up when the applause stops." I'd smiled then, touched by his quiet approval. The attorney cleared his throat, and I snapped back to the present. "To my nephew Kyle Connors, I hereby bequeath the sum of $62 million to be held in trust." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Kyle's fingers stopped drumming. "I'm sorry," Kyle interrupted, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Could you repeat that number?" $62 million, the attorney confirmed, and just like that, the quiet gathering exploded into chaos. Kyle's phone buzzed, then mine, then everyone's. I watched reporters' names flash across Kyle's screen. How did they know so quickly? My husband's face transformed. The polite grief mask fell away, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Raw, triumphant power. Have you ever felt the ground dissolving under your feet? That's what it was like, watching Kyle work the room. He was already speaking in sound bites, already playing the role of the gracious heir. My throat went dry as I noticed he hadn't looked at me once since the number was announced. The rest of the afternoon blurred. Kyle took calls in the hallway while I sat numbly in the conference room, watching his pacing shadow through the frosted glass. When we finally left, he didn't open my car door like usual. Small thing, but it felt like a bell tolling. "I need to handle some things," he said, dropping me at home. "Don't wait up." He didn't kiss me goodbye. I should have seen it coming. Should have packed a bag. Instead, I made dinner that no one ate and watched the sunset paint our living room gold. Around 9, my key wouldn't turn in the lock. The door opened just enough for Kyle to fill the gap. He'd changed into his casual clothes, but his expression was all business. "I think we need some space," he said, as if discussing a minor schedule change. "Now that things have evolved." "Space?" My voice sounded far away. "Kyle, this is my home." "Was your home?" He glanced at his watch. The same watch I'd helped him pick out when we were starting out, barely able to afford it. "I've had my team draw up some temporary arrangements. They'll contact you tomorrow." "Your team?" The porch light buzzed overhead, attracting moths. "Kyle, I've been your team for 12 years. That was then." He shifted his weight, impatient now. "Things change, Veronica. People evolve? $62 million? His laugh was short, sharp. That's a different league. I need to think about my image now. I stepped forward. Let me get my things at least. Tomorrow. The door was already closing. Your purse has your credit cards. Get a hotel. Kyle. The lock clicked. I stood there, pulse thudding in my ears, staring at the brass handle that had just betrayed me. Through the decorative glass panels, I could see Kyle's silhouette moving away, phone already to his ear. 12 years of partnership, erased in 12 hours. My purse felt suddenly heavy on my shoulder. Everything I owned now reduced to its contents. Above me, moths kept dancing around the porch light, thinking it was the moon. When the sun rose, I was still wearing yesterday's morning outfit, perched on a coffee shop chair across from attorney Margaret Lewis. Her salt and pepper bun was as precise as her speech. Community property laws are designed for exactly this situation, she said, tapping her pen against a legal pad. In theory, half of any marital assets, including inheritances commingled with joint accounts, should be protected. The steam from my untouched coffee curled between us. Strange how 24 hours could age ordinary gestures, like ordering coffee, into surreal performances. Do this normal thing, my brain whispered, even though normal died yesterday at a will reading. In theory? I caught the qualification in her tone. Margaret's eyes narrowed slightly. Let's wait for... A knock interrupted her. Her assistant ushered in a man who looked factory-made for corporate law, trailing Kyle's distinctive cologne. He handed Margaret a leather portfolio without a word. Margaret's face stayed professionally neutral as she opened it. I see. What? My fingers found the cardboard sleeve around my coffee cup, squeezing until it creased. What is it? A spendthrift trust. She laid out documents one by one, like dealing cards in a game I was already losing. Quite comprehensive. The inheritance is legally isolated from marital assets, and this... She slid over a separate paper, crisp with fresh ink. Same-day separation notice. The words blurred. I blinked hard, refusing to cry in front of Kyle's lawyer. How can he file for separation the same day? The trust was apparently prepared months ago, Margaret said, scanning the papers. Your husband's uncle arranged it before his death. Very thorough. The separation filing was clearly planned to coincide. Kyle's lawyer spoke for the first time, his voice as bland as hotel art. Mr. Connors wishes to handle this transition generously, provided things remain amicable. My laugh came out jagged. Amicable? He changed the locks while I was making dinner. The locks were changed for security reasons, the lawyer said smoothly. Given the substantial nature of the inheritance, additional protective measures were required. Margaret held up a hand. Let's focus on immediate concerns. Mrs. Connors, your access to joint accounts has been temporarily suspended. Kyle's lawyer finished. Again, for security. A stipend will be arranged. A stipend. Like I was a charity case. Like I hadn't kept our business afloat through lean years, tracking every penny while Kyle chased big dreams with other people's money. What are my options? I asked Margaret. She waited until Kyle's lawyer left before answering. Limited. The trust is airtight. Your husband's uncle clearly wanted to protect the inheritance from any claims. But I helped build everything we have. My voice cracked. I balanced the books. I managed payroll. I know. Her tone softened slightly. But legally, the trust creates a firewall. The separation filing prevents any new community property claims. And without access to your joint accounts? She didn't need to finish. I was effectively broke. My credit cards were probably already canceled. The world had tilted sideways in less than a day. Get some rest, Margaret advised, standing. We'll explore other angles tomorrow. I nodded numbly, gathering my purse, the same one from yesterday, now holding everything I owned. Outside her office, the morning sun felt like a spotlight, exposing how quickly security could vanish. The bus ride to my friend Tessa's place was a blur of mental mathematics. How much cash did I have? Would my phone service last the month? I gripped the railing as we turned a corner, wondering if Kyle was already redecorating our home, erasing 12 years of shared life. A teenager offered me her seat, and that small kindness nearly broke me. I shook my head, clinging to the railing. The motion of the bus felt like the only solid thing left in my world. Remember how the uncle used to say stewardship was about who shows up when the applause stops? Well, the applause had definitely stopped. But I was still here, wasn't I? Standing on a bus, yes, but standing. My reflection in the window looked strange, still wearing yesterday's clothes, clutching a railing like it could anchor me to my old life. But it wasn't my old life anymore. In the space of 24 hours, I'd gone from being one half of a partnership to being nothing but a line item in a lawyer's portfolio. The bus lurched to my stop. As I stepped onto the curb, my phone buzzed with a text. Account access suspended. Please contact your local branch. I stared at the message until the screen went dark, seeing my future dissolving as clearly as my reflection had in that bus window. I'd forgotten how uncomfortable pull-out sofas could be. Every spring jabbed through the thin mattress, making sleep impossible. Not that I could have slept anyway. My mind kept spinning through the events of the past 24 hours like a demented carousel. Here. Tessa handed me a steaming mug. It's not your fancy French press, but it's caffeine. The coffee was weak, but the warmth helped steady my hands. Thanks for letting me crash here. Please, remember college? That time I lived on your floor for 2 weeks after the great roommate disaster of '06? She settled beside me, tucking her legs under her. At least you're not stress baking at 3 a.m. like back then. That memory hit harder than I expected. Back then, my biggest crisis had been a failed statistics midterm. Now, I couldn't even buy groceries. I'd tried using my card at the corner store last night, wanting to at least contribute something to Tessa's household. The decline notification had burned red on the terminal screen while people queued behind me. I should try calling the bank again, I said, reaching for my phone. Han, it's barely 7. They won't be open yet. She was right. Morning light sliced through her blinds in thin strips, painting the room in watercolor grays. Everything felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. The girl who'd stress-baked through college seemed like a stranger now. I kept all the receipts, I said suddenly. Every single one. For 12 years, I tracked every penny that went through our business. When Kyle was chasing investors, making big promises, I was the one balancing the books at midnight, making sure we could actually pay our staff. I know. Tessa's voice was gentle. You were always the responsible one. Fat lot of good that did me. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. All those years of being careful and he just... An engine rumbled outside, cutting me off. A sleek black car pulled up to Tessa's curb, idling with that particular purr that screamed money. My stomach clenched. Is that... Tessa moved to the window. The doorbell rang before she could finish. We exchanged looks. She raised an eyebrow in silent question. Should she answer it? I nodded, setting down my coffee. Might as well face whatever this was. Kyle stood on the doorstep, looking oddly diminished despite his perfect suit. His normally confident posture had a desperate edge, and his face was pale beneath its usual polish. Veronica. He glanced past me at Tessa, then back. Can we talk? Privately? Whatever you need to say, you can say it here. My voice came out steadier than I felt. He shifted, uncomfortable. Look, I know things got intense yesterday, but I need you to come home. Home? I almost laughed. You changed the locks. That was... He ran a hand through his hair, messing up its careful styling. Things are complicated right now. There's this post-inheritance audit. They'll be watching everything I do for the next 30 days. And I need you there, for optics. He tried to smile, that charming expression that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made me tired. Just until the audit's done, we can figure out the rest later. Optics, I repeated. Behind me, I heard Tessa's sharp intake of breath. Yes, optics. Irritation crept into his voice. This isn't just about us anymore. There's $62 million at stake. The car's engine purred behind him, waiting. Everything about this scene felt staged. The driver watching from behind tinted windows, Kyle's carefully casual pose, even the way morning light caught his wedding ring. Why do you care what I do now? I asked quietly. You've made it very clear I'm not part of your new life. Something flickered in his eyes. Fear? Because if I fail this audit, I lose everything. The words hung between us like smoke. I studied his face, seeing past the polish to the panic underneath. Everything? Everything. He glanced back at his waiting car, then leaned closer. Please, Veronica, just come home. We can work this out. I held his gaze, searching for any trace of the partner I'd thought I married. Why should I help you keep what you took from me? Kyle's shoulders tensed at my question. I could almost see him calculating, weighing how much truth would buy my cooperation. The morning air felt thick with unspoken threats. Look, he said, voice dropping to barely a whisper. This audit? It's not just paperwork. They're watching everything. How I handle the transition, how I treat family obligations, even how I manage existing relationships. His eyes darted around like he expected hidden cameras. If I don't pass their standards, the whole inheritance gets redirected. My chest tightened. 12 years of marriage had taught me Kyle's tells, the way his left hand twitched when cornered, how his practiced smile went rigid at the edges. Right now, every signal screamed genuine panic. 30 days, he repeated. That's all I need. Just stand beside me at a few events, smile for some photos, make it look like we're working through things privately instead of... He gestured vaguely at Tessa's modest townhouse. The fury I'd been swallowing since yesterday clawed up my throat. Remember those charity galas where he'd introduced me as the wife while I'd spent days balancing their books? Or the investors' dinners where he'd laugh off my obsession with receipts while my late nights kept us solvent? Now he needed my boring loyalty, again. The same quality he'd mocked last Christmas when I stayed home cataloging foundation records instead of joining his ski trip. So let me understand, I said, keeping my voice level. Yesterday you changed the locks, froze my accounts, and had your lawyers ambush me with separation papers. But today you need me to play happy wife for your audit? A car horn cut through the morning quiet. 2 sharp, impatient beeps. Kyle's driver, growing restless. The sound made him flinch. Time's critical here, he said. Every day counts. I can have the locks changed back within the hour. Your cards will work again by lunch. Whatever you need to make this... Another vague wave of his hand. Comfortable. Comfortable. Like I was a piece of furniture he could rearrange to suit the moment's needs. My fingernails dug into my palms. And after the 30 days? I asked. When you've passed your audit? Something shifted in his expression. A flicker of that same dismissive look I'd seen yesterday when his lawyer handed me the separation papers. We can discuss arrangements then. Right now, I just need... My cooperation, I finished. My silence. My smile. Yes. At least he had the grace to sound uncomfortable. The foundation has strict requirements about family stability. If they think I'm abandoning commitments or acting impulsively... The driver honked again, longer this time. Kyle glanced back, anxiety tightening his jaw. 30 days. The number pulsed in my mind like a countdown. 30 days where he needed me visible but compliant. 30 days where every move would be scrutinized. 30 days where I wasn't as powerless as he'd assumed. I felt Tessa shift behind me, probably burning to tell him exactly where he could shove his audit. But leverage like this? You don't waste it on momentary satisfaction. I'll need time to think, I said, watching his face fall. You've given me a lot to process in the last 24 hours. There isn't time, he insisted. The audit team is all ready. A third honk, aggressive enough to make neighbors' curtains twitch. Kyle's carefully maintained composure cracked further. He pulled out a business card, scribbling a number on the back. Call this line directly when you're ready. Anytime, day or night. But please, Veronica, make it soon. I took the card, noting how his hands trembled slightly. 30 days is the deadline? Yes. And every day I don't demonstrate proper... He swallowed. Family considerations works against me. The driver laid on the horn, letting it blare. Kyle nearly jumped out of his skin. I have to go, he said. Please call, please. I watched him hurry back to the waiting car, his perfect posture crumbling with each step. The vehicle pulled away, smooth and silent, but I could feel the driver's irritation in how sharply they took the corner. 30 days. The inheritance that was supposed to set him free now had him on a leash, and I held the other end, whether he knew it or not. 3 days after Kyle's desperate doorstep visit, I found myself in a tiny coffee shop downtown, across from a woman I'd only glimpsed at foundation events. Nora Patel's neat blouse and composed demeanor seemed out of place among the scattered laptop warriors and caffeine-desperate students. I've been hoping you'd call, she said, sliding her leather folio onto our table. There are things about the inheritance you need to know. I wrapped my hands around my cooling latte. The ceramic felt solid, grounding, unlike everything else in my life lately. I assumed the will was straightforward. Kyle gets everything, I get nothing. Not quite. Nora adjusted her glasses with precise movements. Your husband's uncle was particular about legacy, about stewardship. That word triggered a memory. The uncle's voice, gentle but firm, during one of our Sunday archiving sessions. Stewardship is who shows up when the applause stops. I'd assumed it was just kind encouragement for my voluntary work. The full will includes specific requirements, Nora continued, extracting a document from her folio. Requirements your husband's lawyers haven't shared. She pushed the paper across the sticky cafe table. My coffee went forgotten as I read, then read again, my heart starting to race. A stewardship clause? My voice cracked slightly. Testing familial duty and continuity? Nora nodded. The audit this Friday at 5 p.m. isn't just about finances. It's about character, about how the heir handles sudden wealth. She leaned forward. Specifically how he treats his partner, the one who kept the books for the past 3 years. My hands trembled as I absorbed the implications. If Kyle fails this test, control shifts to the spouse who maintained the records. Nora's voice remained steady, but her eyes sparked. The uncle believed true wealth requires careful stewardship, not just DNA. Hope fluttered in my chest, dangerous, wild hope. I thought of our consultancy's ledgers, the foundation's meticulous archives, 3 years of receipts and records in my precise handwriting. But I'd need proof, I said. Documentation that I was the one. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. Texts started flooding in. Friends, family, even old college classmates. All with variations of the same message. Are you okay? Just saw the news. What happened? Frowning, I opened social media. And there it was, posted 15 minutes ago from Kyle's verified accounts. After months of private separation, Kyle and Veronica Connors announced their mutual decision to part ways. This predates recent events and reflects a natural evolution of their relationship. Both parties signed agreement to these terms in February and request privacy during this transition. Below the carefully worded text was my signature, a perfect replica of my handwriting, but I'd never seen this document, let alone signed it. I couldn't breathe. That's forged. They're getting ahead of the stewardship clause, Nora said quietly, making it look like you separated months ago, before the inheritance, undermining any claim you might make. I stared at my phone as notifications continued to pour in. The post was already being picked up by local media, business journals, society columns, all running with the story that our separation predated the inheritance, making any protest from me look like gold-digging revenge. They forged my signature, I whispered. My hands were shaking so hard I had to set the phone down. They're destroying my reputation in real time. Nora reached across the table, her small hand covering mine. Your husband's PR team is very thorough, very expensive. She squeezed once, then withdrew. And very good at what they do. I watched another wave of notifications roll in, each one spreading the lie further. My name was being smeared across every platform, every network. By tomorrow, the false narrative would be set in stone. I was the bitter ex trying to cash in on convenient timing. The coffee shop's ambient chatter seemed to fade away as I stared at that forged signature, my vision blurring with fury and humiliation. Kyle hadn't just locked me out of our home, he was trying to lock me out of our entire history. I forced myself to think like the accountant I was. Evidence, data, proof. That's what I needed, not emotions. First things first, I muttered, pulling out my phone. Thank God I'd never deleted text messages. There it was, the exact timestamp from yesterday when Kyle had sent his cold, I need space. Don't come home tonight. Remember when every drawer had its matching receipt, every file its proper place? That methodical woman wasn't gone. She was right here, and she was done being invisible. I started my list. Text messages. Lock change receipt. The locksmith would have one. Security footage from our building's lobby showing me being turned away. My neighbor had seen me sleeping in my car that first night, hadn't she? I called Monica from down the hall, the coder who'd always had a friendly wave and a tech tip. Hey, it's Veronica from 4B. I need a favor. Would you be willing to write down what you saw 2 nights ago? You mean when you were sleeping in your car and Kyle pretended not to know you at the front door? Already documented it, with timestamps. Monica's voice had an edge of righteous anger. I've got security camera screenshots too. That guard should be ashamed. I felt a rush of gratitude. Monica, you're amazing. Would you be willing to sign an affidavit? Already called my notary friend. Come by tonight. With my phone propped against a coffee cup, I started photographing every document Nora had given me. The stewardship clause, the audit requirements. My hands were steady now, methodical. Every image clear, every detail legible. You know that feeling when you're building a case and everything starts clicking into place? When the puzzle pieces align just right? Yeah. That feeling didn't last long. I opened my laptop, fingers flying to access our cloud storage. 3 years of business records lived there. Every consultation invoice, every expense report, every payroll run. My digital paper trail proving I'd been the backbone of our success. Invalid password. I frowned, tried again. Same result. My throat tightened as I attempted every variation I could think of. Our anniversary. His mother's maiden name. That stupid fishing trip he'd dragged me on. Access denied. Access denied. Access denied. No, I whispered. No, no, no. I tried resetting the password. Your account has been deactivated. Please contact your system administrator. Kyle was the admin. Of course he was. I'd never thought to change that, had I? Too busy actually running the business to worry about admin rights. Remember that moment in old horror movies when the protagonist realizes they're locked in? That cold sweat? That spike of panic? That's how I felt staring at that login screen. 3 years of meticulous records, of late nights and double-checked figures, all locked away behind a digital wall. My phone buzzed. A text from Kyle. Hey babe, noticed some weird login attempts. Don't worry, I've secured all our business assets. Wouldn't want any unauthorized access during this transition. That smug little emoji felt like a slap. I could picture him in his office, probably sipping that ridiculous $1,000 scotch, thinking he'd checkmated me. I tried our secondary cloud backup. Denied. The accounting software, locked out. Our shared digital drive, access revoked. With each rejection, my screen seemed to glow brighter, more accusatory. How had I never noticed this vulnerability? I'd been so careful with the books, so diligent with the records, but I'd left this one door unlocked. And now? Multiple failed login attempts detected. Your IP address has been blocked. The words blurred as I stared at the monitor. Everything I needed, every spreadsheet, every email, every documented hour of my work, sat just out of reach. All my proof, all my ammunition, locked away with a few keystrokes. Monica's voice echoed in my head. Already documented it, with timestamps. I glanced at my phone, then back at the mocking login screen. Maybe there was another way to prove what I'd done, not through our official records, but through the digital breadcrumbs I'd left elsewhere. Email timestamps, file metadata, server logs. But as another access denied flashed across my screen, that hope felt as distant as the records I couldn't reach. I pressed my palms against my eyes, fighting back tears of frustration. When I looked up, my reflection in the black monitor stared back. A woman stripped of her proof, her history held hostage by the man who'd promised to be her partner. The cursor blinked steadily, waiting for another password attempt. I didn't give it one. Why bother? The message was clear. Kyle hadn't just locked me out of our home. He'd locked me out of our entire digital life. I don't know how long I sat there staring at that black screen. Minutes? Hours? Time felt sticky and wrong, like molasses flowing backward. My fingers had left smudges on the laptop, and I wiped them away with my sleeve. Still wearing yesterday's clothes, I realized. Still wearing the same outfit I'd had on when Kyle changed those locks. You ever notice how humiliation has a physical weight? It settles in your chest like wet cement, making each breath a little harder than the last. I shuffled to Tessa's sofa, the one she'd made up with her best guess sheets. Pale blue cotton that smelled like lavender fabric softener. Such a small kindness, but it broke something in me. The tears came hot and fast, soaking into the decorative throw pillow I hugged against my chest. Hey. Tessa's voice was soft as she sat beside me. You want some tea? I shook my head, unable to speak. The sobs weren't pretty. They were ugly, gasping things that made my whole body shake. 3 years of receipts, 3 years of ledgers, 3 years of proof, all locked away behind Kyle's digital wall. I can't, I choked out. I can't fight him. He's erased me. Everything I did, everything I was, gone. Tessa's hand was warm on my back. You're not gone. You're right here. But was I? The woman Kyle had locked out, the one whose signature he'd forged, the one he'd stripped of access and dignity. Who was she now? The old me felt like a ghost, fading with each access-denied message. Remember those late nights at the foundation, sorting through the uncle's archives? The dust motes dancing in lamplight, the quiet satisfaction of bringing order to chaos? That woman felt centuries away from this sobbing mess on a borrowed sofa. The doorbell rang. I'll get it, Tessa said, squeezing my shoulder. I barely registered the murmur of voices in the hallway, too lost in my own spiral. What was left to fight with? No money, no credibility, no evidence. Kyle had engineered the perfect erasure, turning me into exactly what his PR team claimed, a grasping nobody, inventing connections to his success. Veronica? Tessa's voice had an odd note. Someone's here to see you. I looked up, vision blurry, to see Nora Patel standing in the doorway. Her neat blouse and glasses were familiar as always, but she carried something new. A sleek silver laptop under one arm, and a sealed envelope in her hand. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner, she said, settling beside me. I had to wait until certain preparations were complete. I wiped my eyes, trying to gather some dignity. Preparations? Nora placed the envelope on the coffee table. Heavy cream paper, sealed with dark blue wax. The foundation's logo was pressed into it. I recognized the stamp from my archiving work. The uncle, Nora said quietly, left instructions. This envelope wasn't to be opened unless certain conditions were met. She touched the seal. Your husband's actions have met those conditions. My heart stuttered. What conditions? Instead of answering, Nora opened her laptop and inserted a USB drive. Before we open that envelope, you need to see this. The video player loaded, and there he was, the uncle, filmed in his study. My throat tightened at the sight of him, healthy and whole, sitting in that leather chair I'd helped him pick out. The timestamp showed this was recorded 8 months before his death. If you're watching this, he began, his voice strong and clear, then Kyle has done exactly what I feared he might. He's discarded the partner who kept him honest, the one who showed up when the applause stopped. I pressed a hand to my mouth. Veronica, he continued, and hearing him say my name made fresh tears spill. You thought I didn't notice, didn't you? All those Sunday afternoons in the archives, the ledgers balanced to the penny, the quiet competence that Kyle took for granted. He leaned forward. But I saw you. I saw everything. The uncle's eyes seemed to look right through the screen. That's why I added the contingent trustee clause. If Kyle scorns the woman who built his success, if he tries to erase her contribution, a small smile, well, then she becomes the rightful steward of everything. Nora paused the video on his gentle expression. There's more, she said. But first, we should open that envelope. I stared at the seal, the weight in my chest transforming into something else, something that felt like hope's first spark. The uncle had seen me, had known this might happen, had left me an ace up his sleeve. The uncle's video changed everything. Suddenly I had a target, 2 documents that could prove my role. The archive inventory I'd crafted over countless Sundays, and our household ledger tracking every consultation payment. The cloud files are still locked, I told Nora, pacing Tessa's living room. Kyle's blocked my access to everything. Maybe not everything. Monica Reyes appeared in the doorway, laptop tucked under her arm. I'd barely spoken to her beyond hallway hellos when we were neighbors, but Tessa had mentioned she worked in data recovery. Remember how Kyle used to mock my obsessive backup habits? The way I'd email myself copies of important documents, just in case? Funny how paranoia looks like wisdom in hindsight. If you've ever synced those files, Monica said, settling cross-legged on the floor, there might be fragments cached somewhere. Digital breadcrumbs. I dropped beside her. Where do we start? Email archives first. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Then browser caches, temp folders, anywhere data might hide. The next hours blurred into strings of code and file fragments. Monica muttered tech speak while I supplied login credentials to every platform I'd ever touched. Nora made coffee runs. Tessa kept watch. Got something, Monica said around midnight. Partial sync from 3 months ago. The inventory's fragmented, but the metadata's intact, I breathed, recognizing dates and timestamps. That proves when I created it. Monica nodded. And look at this recovery log. Regular Sunday updates going back years. My eyes burned as patterns emerged. Every weekend archive session, every careful catalog entry, proof of my dedication rising from digital ashes. The household ledger's trickier, Monica warned, but there's a ghost of it in your email attachments. If I can... A sharp knock cut her off. Tessa peered through the peephole, then stepped back. Lawyers. My stomach dropped. Kyle's legal team filed in, led by Richard Chen in an immaculate suit that screamed late-night billing hours. Their leather briefcases gleamed like weapons. Mrs. Connors. Chen's smile was shark smooth. We have something you should see. Behind me, Monica's fingers never stopped moving. Chen extracted a document with theatrical precision. A codicil to the uncle's will, executed 2 weeks before his death. He laid it on Tessa's coffee table, revoking any contingent claims by outside parties. The paper landed with a whisper that felt like thunder. My recovered files suddenly seemed fragile, worthless. That's impossible, Nora said. I handled all the uncle's paperwork. This never... His signature suggests otherwise. Chen tapped the bottom of the page. Properly witnessed and notarized. I stared at the signature. It looked perfect. Too perfect. The room's air felt thin, like high altitude. In the corner of my eye, Monica's screen flickered with compressed files extracting. We'll need those devices, Chen said, noticing her work. Any unauthorized access to company data? These are personal emails, I cut in, my private accounts, which may contain privileged information. Chen gestured to his associates. Hand them over. Monica's typing intensified. A progress bar crept across her screen. Now, Chen demanded. The bar hit 100%. Monica's laptop chimed softly, just as the lawyers reached for it. The codicil sat between us like a landmine, its forged signature mocking everything I'd fought to prove. The uncle's video felt distant now, its hope evaporating under the weight of legal paper. Chen smiled again, victory in every perfect tooth. I trust this concludes any confusion about succession? The room held its breath. What could we say? They had us cornered with a single document. I watched Chen slide the codicil closer, its crisp edges aligned with obsessive precision. The paper settled against the coffee table's wood with a soft, final sound. And just like that, the oxygen vanished. You know that moment when the world stops spinning, when every breath feels like it's moving through honey? That's what happened when Monica leaned forward, her eyes narrowing at the codicil. May I? She reached for the document, and before Chen could object, she angled it under Tessa's desk lamp. Interesting printer pattern. I watched Chen's jaw tighten. The document's authenticity isn't up for debate. Actually, Monica traced her finger over the paper, not quite touching it. These microdots are from a 2023 LaserJet, pretty new for a document supposedly signed weeks before the uncle's death last year. My heart skipped. I remembered the ancient printer in the uncle's study, its beige case yellowed with age. He'd refused to replace it, calling it his lucky charm. Printer identification is hardly conclusive, Chen said, but I caught the slight tremor in his voice. Nora adjusted her glasses, bending close to examine the notary stamp. This is Sandra Miller's seal, but look at the registration number. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. I have her actual stamp from the original will signing. The digits are different. A clerical error, Chen snapped, reaching for the codicil. Monica held up her hand. Don't touch it. Those dots are evidence. She turned to me. Each printer leaves a unique pattern, like a fingerprint. This one's timestamp is encoded right in the dots. I remembered Kyle's new office printer installed just last week. The memory of him smirking about the upgrade suddenly carried different weight. The trustees meet in 6 hours, Nora said quietly. If we can prove forgery... Chen's composure cracked. This is absurd. Mrs. Connors, your desperation is... Getting warmer? I met his gaze. You can probably bill Kyle for another hour of cleanup, but I'd start drafting your withdrawal letter. The other lawyers shifted uncomfortably. One whispered something in Chen's ear. We'll need the original will for comparison, Monica said. And I can call my forensics contact about the printer identification. I have Sandra Miller's direct number, Nora added. She can verify her actual stamp numbers. Chen gathered his briefcase. This harassment will be noted in our filing, along with the forged document. I smiled. Bold choice. After they left, we huddled around Tessa's coffee table. Monica's laptop displayed magnified images of the printer dots while Nora spread out her photos of the original documents. The trustees meet at 9, Nora said. We need ironclad proof, not just suspicions. 3 elements, Monica counted off. Printer timestamp, notary verification, and original document comparison. I felt hope rising, dangerous and bright. Can we do it in time? If we split up. Monica was already typing. I'll handle the forensics. Nora can contact Sandra Miller. You need to get the original will, I finished. The thought of facing Kyle at the office made my stomach clench, but there was no choice. Nora squeezed my arm. The proof's there. We just have to connect it all. And present it properly, Monica added. The trustees will want everything documented. I looked at the codicil, its fake perfection now obvious. Kyle had always thought money could paper over any problem, but some things, like printer dots and notary stamps, couldn't be bought. 6 hours, I said. Let's make them count. We divided tasks and contact numbers. Monica's screen filled with forensic analysis software while Nora assembled her documentation. The sun would rise soon, bringing with it the trustee meeting and our one chance to expose the truth. They'll want absolute certainty, Nora warned. No room for doubt. Then we'll give them certainty. I grabbed my coat. Every dot, every number, every detail. The night air hit my face as I stepped outside. Somewhere across town, Kyle was probably sleeping soundly, believing his forged codicil had ended the fight. He had no idea that microscopic dots and a mismatched notary stamp were about to shatter his perfect plan. Ready? Monica called from the doorway, laptop under her arm. I thought of all the nights I'd spent organizing files while Kyle chased spotlights. All the careful records he dismissed as boring. All the details I'd protected while he played at being grand. Time to show them who really pays attention, I said. The trustees would demand proof in just a few hours. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the ground solidify beneath my feet. We had evidence. We had experts. We had truth. Now we just had to make it count. I gripped the edge of the conference table as Monica stepped forward, her laptop connected to the overhead display. The trustees' faces glowed blue in the projected light, their expressions fixed and unreadable. The document presented as a codicil, Monica began, zooming into a corner of the page, contains microscopic yellow dots. These are printer tracking codes, unique to each device. Her cursor circled a seemingly blank area. Under magnification, tiny spots appeared like stars. You know those moments when the air feels electric, when you can sense everyone holding their breath? This was one of them. The timestamp encoded in these dots, Monica continued, shows this document was created last Tuesday at 2:17 p.m. She clicked to another image. On a Xerox Workcenter Pro installed in Kyle Connors' office exactly 8 days ago. Kyle's attorney Chen jumped up. This is absurd speculation. It's documented fact, Monica cut in. I have the printer's serial number, purchase record, and installation log. More documents filled the screen. The microdot pattern is registered in the manufacturer's database. It's like a fingerprint, impossible to fake. I watched Kyle's face. That familiar muscle in his jaw twitched, the same tell I'd seen whenever our consultancy hit trouble, and he was about to suggest something risky. The timing of equipment purchases is irrelevant, he declared, but his voice lacked its usual polish. The codicil is legitimate. Nora cleared her throat. All eyes turned to her as she lifted a manila envelope. That brings us to the notary verification. She withdrew 2 documents, placing them side by side on the table. The original will bears notary Sandra Miller's stamp, registration number 7249B. Her finger moved to the codicil. This stamp shows 7294B. A simple transcription error, Chen insisted. I spoke with Sandra Miller this morning. Nora's voice remained steady. She has never used that number. In fact, she slid forward a notarized statement. She was in Hawaii on the date this codicil was supposedly witnessed. The trustee chairman leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. I remembered all those nights cataloging archives, learning every detail of the foundation's history. Now, similar attention to detail was unraveling Kyle's scheme. Mr. Connors, the chairman said, these are serious allegations. This is a coordinated attack. Kyle stood, straightening his tie. My wife, ex-wife, Chen muttered, but I caught it, is attempting to manipulate this audit for financial gain. The codicil is authentic. I demand— You're not in a position to demand anything, the chairman cut in. He turned to his colleagues. The evidence of forgery appears substantial. Additionally, the attempt to backdate a separation announcement raises serious concerns about intent to deceive this board. Kyle's face had lost all color. I'd seen him pale before, during audits, during fights, but never like this. The polished veneer cracked, revealing raw panic underneath. The trustees huddled, whispers floating across the room. I caught fragments. Attorney General. Criminal liability. Immediate action required. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone must hear it. The foundation's oak-paneled walls seemed to press closer, decades of portraits watching this modern drama unfold. The chairman's gavel cracked against wood. Based on the evidence presented, this board finds Kyle Connors has violated his fiduciary duty through attempted fraud. His control of the trust is hereby suspended, pending full investigation. Kyle surged to his feet. You can't— We can, and we have. Furthermore, we are referring this matter to the Attorney General's Office for Criminal Investigation. The forged codicil, the falsified separation announcement, and the coordinated attempt to disenfranchise the legitimate contingent trustee constitute a pattern of deception this board cannot ignore. The gavel struck again. This session is adjourned. Mr. Connors, you will surrender all foundation credentials to security before leaving the building. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The first domino had fallen, and its crash echoed through the room like thunder. Veronica, Monica whispered, squeezing my arm. But I kept my eyes on Kyle as reality settled over him. His shoulders slumped. That calculated charm drained away, leaving something small and desperate in its place. The chairman stood. Ms. Patel, please ensure all evidence is properly documented for the Attorney General's office. Kyle started toward me, but security appeared at his elbow. Sir, we need your credentials. I watched him fumble with his wallet, hands shaking as he extracted the Foundation ID card. The man who'd locked me out without a backward glance was now being escorted out himself. The gavel's echo still seemed to hang in the air, the sound of justice beginning, of truth breaking through. And somewhere in the Foundation's archive room, surrounded by the boxes I'd carefully organized, the uncle's words came back to me. Stewardship is who shows up when the applause stops. The applause had definitely stopped for Kyle, and this was just the beginning. The news ripped through the Foundation's hallways like wildfire. I stood by the window, watching Kyle argue with his driver in the parking lot. His gestures grew wild, desperate. Then the driver simply got in the car and left him there. My phone buzzed. Monica had already posted the board's decision in her tech industry network. It's spreading fast, she whispered, showing me the cascade of responses. The forgery angle especially. Nobody wants their brand anywhere near this. I didn't need to check social media to witness the fallout. Through the window, I watched Kyle pull out his phone, pacing in tight circles. Even from 3 stories up, I could read his body language. The way he kept moving the phone from one ear to the other, each call shorter than the last. That's 4 major sponsorships pulled, Nora reported, tablet in hand. The tech conference canceled his keynote, and the Venture Capital Forum just rescinded his judge position. Remember how I said Kyle had cultivated his silver fox image? Now it was working against him. Every carefully curated photo, every polished soundbite about integrity in business, it all amplified the backlash. The higher you build your pedestal, the harder the fall. My watch showed 4:35, 25 minutes until the audit deadline. Through the glass, Kyle's pacing got more frantic. He jabbed at his phone, then held it to his ear. 10 seconds later, he pulled it back, staring at the screen in disbelief. Another call rejected. The charity boards are jumping ship, Monica said, scrolling through updates. 3 resignations in the last 10 minutes. They're citing ethical concerns and preservation of donor trust. The uncle's portrait hung on the wall behind me. I could almost hear his voice. Money shows you who people pretend to be. Crisis shows you who they are. 4:40 p.m. Kyle had stopped pacing. He stood in the middle of the parking lot, shoulders slumped, still staring at his phone. The man who'd dismissed my boring loyalty was watching his glamorous circle evaporate in real time. My own phone lit up with a news alert. Someone had leaked the Attorney General referral to the press. The headline mentioned prominent tech figure and alleged document fraud. Below it, a photo of Kyle from last month's charity gala, raising a champagne glass with his trademark confident smile. The private club suspended his membership, Nora said quietly. Effective immediately. 4:45 p.m. The foundation's security chief appeared in the doorway. Ms. Connors, the board chairman requests your presence in the main conference room. Final audit review. I gathered my files, the resurrected ledgers, the archive inventories, every receipt and record I'd kept when no one was watching. The weight of paper in my arms felt like armor. Kyle's voice carried through the lobby as I passed. He was at the front desk, demanding to speak to the chairman. The security guard's response was firm. Your access has been revoked, sir. Please exit the premises. 4:48 p.m. The conference room doors closed behind me with a soft click. The trustees sat around the massive oak table, faces grave. The chairman gestured to an empty seat. Ms. Connors, we've reviewed the documentation. Given today's revelations and your historical role with the foundation. 4:50 p.m. Through the conference room's glass wall, I saw Kyle being escorted to the building's exit. His phone buzzed again in his hand. Even from here, I could see him check it, then let it drop limply to his side. Another rejection, another door closed. The chairman was still speaking, but my eyes were locked on the wall clock. The second hand swept past the 10, then the 11, measuring out the final moments of Kyle's calculated betrayal. The man who'd changed the locks on our home in less than 6 hours was now locked out himself. The husband who'd tried to erase me from his new fortune was being erased from the circles he'd so carefully cultivated. 10 minutes remained until the 5 p.m. deadline. The chairman slid a document across the polished oak, turning it to face me. At the top, in bold letters, Resolution of Trustee Appointment. The second hand kept moving, each tick another piece of Kyle's empire crumbling away. 9 minutes now. 8.5. I reached for my pen, feeling the weight of everything. The long nights with ledgers, the quiet Sundays in the archive, the uncle's faith, and Kyle's betrayal, all compressed into this moment. The clock on the wall read 4:52 p.m. The chairman's pen scratched across paper, the sound impossibly loud in the hushed conference room. Motion carries unanimously. He checked his watch. Time is 4:57 p.m. I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The other trustees nodded, some smiling, others dabbing at misty eyes. Nora squeezed my hand under the table. Congratulations, Madam Chair, the chairman said, rising to shake my hand. The foundation is yours to steward. Remember how I told you about those late nights with the ledgers, the quiet Sundays in the dusty archive? All those hours felt like preparation for this moment, though I hadn't known it then. The universe has a way of banking our investments until we need them most. There's one more thing, Nora said, reaching into her bag. She withdrew a small velvet pouch, deep purple with gold drawstrings. The uncle wanted you to have this when, and I quote, when she proves herself the true guardian. My fingers trembled as I opened the pouch. Inside lay the brass archive key I'd used countless Sundays, its aged metal warm against my palm. The uncle had always kept it on a hook in his office, a simple symbol of trust and responsibility. He had this made for it too, Nora added, producing a length of midnight blue velvet ribbon. The other trustees helped clear my new office, the uncle's old office. Monica hung the ribbon while I steadied the ladder. The key caught the late afternoon sun as it settled into place above the door, casting golden reflections on the wall like a benediction. My phone buzzed. Kyle's text lit up the screen. Please, I know I screwed up. Give me another chance? I walked to the window. 5 floors below, he stood alone on the curb where his driver had always waited. His silver hair was mussed, his designer suit wrinkled. No cameras followed him now, no entourage hung on his words. Just a man who'd gambled everything on flashover substance and lost. Another text. I'll make it right. We can start over. The thing about betrayal is it shows you who people are when the masks come off. Kyle had revealed himself in those first 24 hours after the inheritance. The locked doors, the frozen accounts, the PR smear. Money hadn't corrupted him. It had simply given him permission to be who he truly was. I reached for the blind cord, then paused. Through the glass, I could see him staring up at the building, phone still in hand. The man who'd mocked my boring loyalty was learning that loyalty, like respect, isn't boring at all. It's the foundation everything else stands on. The blinds whispered closed. Behind me, the brass key gleamed on its ribbon, a promise kept. The uncle had known something Kyle never understood. True wealth isn't measured in dollars or status. It's measured in trust earned and honor maintained. I settled into the chair, my chair now, and smiled, feeling the rightness of it all settle into place. Respect, I said softly, is the only real fortune. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.